for some more analysis, we've got France 24 International Affairs editor Kethevane Gorjestani here with us on set. Kethevane, Emmanuel Macron has now talked to nearly all of the political players here. Is there any sign that they have managed to move the needle for him towards finding a candidate that could garner support from a wide enough swath of the center to actually form a coalition to govern?
It doesn't look like it, at least from what we've been hearing from some of the leaders who have come out of these meetings. And the fact is that Emmanuel Macron has two things he needs to do. And one is his public goal, which he has stated, which is that he wants to find a leader for the government, a prime minister, that would not be immediately censured by the rest of parliament. That is the sort of public cover. But of course, what he is trying to do also is that while putting out that threat of a government being censured by the rest of parliament, he is trying slowly to increase what is his centrist alliance to try to convince some on the right and also peel off possibly some of the socialists from the new Popular Front to try to garner as many people as possible to create a majority that could survive that possible censure, or at least see other parties sort of abstain from censoring it. And so this is really what he's trying to do. Whether that is successful right now, it doesn't seem like it, because none of the parties or the alliances that are in play right now seem to be willing to budge. You have, of course, the far right and their allies who have basically said that they would probably censure any form of government that involves any type of left-leaning ministers or prime ministers. And then you have the new Popular Front, this broad alliance of left-wing movements that goes from the socialists to the Greens all the way to France Unbowed. And they also have been saying that they feel they are number one, even though they don't have an absolute majority, they are the number one alliance, that they should be the ones to have a chance at governing, and that they have a candidate, Lucie Castel, and so she should be allowed to form a government. And we heard in what Marine Le Pen said that there's also a question of timing, because, of course, if the government were to be formed right now, the parliament is not in session, meaning that the parliament cannot censure that government. That means whoever would be in power for the next month or so would be allowed to sort of rule by decree, and they could undo some of what President Emmanuel Macron has done so far. So that could also be coming into the calculation.
Interesting. Now, on the leftward side there, as you were saying, La France Insoumise, unpalatable to the far right as well as to many on the right and center-right. Their leader, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, has offered to withdraw any members of his party from an eventual government, a cabinet of ministers, if Macron accepts their candidate, the new Popular Front, Lucie Castel, as prime minister. Do you think that's made any difference? Has it moved Macron at all?
Well, it doesn't seem to have made any difference, but it does seem to have at least brought out into a public view what some were hinting at, which is that the problem for Macron's centrist alliance, the problem for the right, the problem for the far right about this government led by Lucie Castel is not necessarily the actual individual ministers from France Unbowed. It is the program, because most of these parties have come out saying, we don't want that deal. It doesn't matter. She would be someone who is coming from France Unbowed, and she would be someone who would impose the program of the new Popular Front. So it doesn't really matter whether you have members of LFI, of France Unbowed. That is at least what some of the other parties who are opposed to that deal are saying. And the New Popular Front and LFI, France Unbowed themselves, are saying, you see, we are showing you right now that the problem was not with our ministers. The problem is that they don't want a program that a majority of French people voted for because they gave us the most seats. So everybody is sort of twisting and spinning these deals and these responses in their favor. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't bring any sort of conclusion. Nobody seems to be agreeing. It's even looking like it's towards possibly dividing within the new Popular Front, because as Jean-Luc Mélenchon was presenting the sort of Castet prime minister for no LFI members in the government deal, he was also threatening the president with destitution, which is something that didn't sit well with a lot of the Socialist Party, saying that he was basically angering and pushing Macron even further to the limit instead of trying to find a compromise with the president. So not sure that this is working out well for anyone right now.
Indeed, and it must be said that Macron has a pretty packed schedule coming up. He's about to leave the country in a couple of days. We've got the Paralympics starting. All this while the French budget is due in a few very short weeks. The clock is ticking here for him.
Absolutely, because right now we've already been 41 days with this caretaker government. And as you said, Paralympics opening ceremony starts on Wednesday. Then you have that trip to Serbia Thursday, Friday. Then there's the weekend, of course. And so the clock is ticking because that budget, that is important, because the parliament comes back in session officially unless Marine Le Pen gets what she asked for. But the normal session would start on October 1st, which is when that budget needs to be ready to be put in front of the parliament. And for that budget to be ready on October 1st, it doesn't mean that it can be brought on September 30th. It has to be ready a couple of weeks before that, because there's several hurdles that need to be passed before it is presented.
So they might want to read it.
They might want to read it. It's thousands of pages long, so that takes time. It's not something that you can do in a couple of days. So as long as you don't have a actual government, you have a caretaker right now, so that government would have to present that budget, it would have to go through all of this. So a lot of weeks is not what we have. We have basically a couple, 3 weeks maybe, so you need to have a response. And Éric Ciotti, who is now the president of a party who is a little bit divided, if you will, he's the right wing, but has allied himself with the far right. He just came out of his own talks with the president. He seemed to be hinting at the possibility of having a new round of talks next week to figure out something. And he was asked whether we could possibly have the name of a prime minister. He said, definitely not today. So maybe a few more days, but Emmanuel Macron cannot go on like this for several weeks. Maybe next week, but that is already pushing the limit on that clock.
The clock is ticking here, and the pressure is mounting here in France. Kethevane, Gorjestani, France 24 International Affairs Editor. Thanks so much for that analysis.